Hi, I'm Will. I'm just going to do a quick tutorial on how you can add a custom model to a project you've created in XedMod. So I'm just going to create a project and I'm going to call it test. And we need a level to start off with, so I'm going to go to the levels folder, right click and say create template level. And I'm going to call this my level. So if we go to the player folder and then the player prefab, we know we have the default model attached to the player, which is the enemy fighter. So I'm just going to test the level as it is. I'm going to go to project and then test, or I'm just going to push F6. What this will do is it will start the game up with the level we've just created, which also has the default weapon on it as well. So if we go back to XedMod, run stop button. So what we need to do now is go to our source directory, which is the location where you need to store all of your custom assets that will go into your project. I can get there quick by going to project menu and then source directory. And there's nothing in there at the moment, but I have a model here that I've downloaded. It's just a simple fighter 3DS model with some textures. I'm just going to copy that into the source directory. And here on the player we see we have a model 3D behavior, which that just allows a model to be rendered with the prefab. And what I can do is I can simply drag in the model into this property here, and that will load it here. Or we can right click and go to attach source asset and then double click the fighter. So we need to sort out the materials on the model before we test it, because we have some textures to add here. So I'm just going to double click the fighter and we get our material editor, and I can drag in the textures like before, or I can do the attach source asset method by right clicking and add the normal, and then I'll add the specular and then OK. And just to make sure the model's exported, I'm going to right click it and say export. It's pretty quick. Now it looks like this model is facing in the wrong direction, because we have the engine at the back here and here are the two chute slots at the front. But we'll test the level first just to make sure the model's loading correctly. I'm just going to push F6. And we have our model here, but it's currently flying sideways. So if I go back to XedMod and hit the run stop button, so to rotate this model correctly, we need to create a child prefab inside the parent player prefab and then rotate that. So to do that we need to go to the prefabs folder, right click and say create prefab, and then call this player model. And we need to add a model 3D behavior like on the player, so we go to edit behaviors by right clicking, and you can either drag the model 3D behavior in here or just double click it and then OK. And we want to assign the fighter to this model 3D behavior, so we just drag it in. We want to remove the old behavior from the player because we don't need it anymore. So if we go to the player and then we have the model 3D behavior here, and we can right click, edit behaviors, and just double click to remove it and press OK. It's giving us a warning about removing behaviors, but we want to remove it anyway. So we need to add the child prefab to the player now. We can do that by just dragging the player model to the player prefab and holding Alt when we get to it. And in this situation we can either create a clone, which will just simply copy the prefab into the parent, or we can create a pointer prefab which will point back to the original prefab. It's used in more complicated situations, and we'll cover that in a later tutorial. But for now let's just clone it. So we have our chute slots at the front here, and we want to rotate, so we can either hit E or we can go up to the rotate tool at the top here, and we'll rotate on the yaw by 90. Just clean that up in the locator. And then we want to test with F6. And there we have it, our model is facing the right direction. So that concludes the tutorial for now. We will be going on to more advanced topics with scripting and some more complicated hierarchies and prefabs. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and have fun.